Today, you probably helped save a life. Or perhaps helped keep a watchful eye on a neighborhood. Today, you probably helped put food on someone's table. Or help build a road that leads to a destiny. You may have even helped shape the minds of our future. By paying your taxes, you help keep critical medical staff in a job, a school to run, or a neighborhood safe, and a whole lot more. Your taxes help Zambia become better for you and me. Zambia Revenue Authority. My tax, your tax, our destiny.
Hello, thank you for joining us again on Tax Chat. I'm your presenter, Alice Lungu. Have you ever made a mistake on your tax return or underdeclared your income or left out something? On today's chat, we are looking at a voluntary disclosure, and to help us look at that is PELONE, CHISANGA and PHIRI, who are both senior tax consultant from Zambia Revenue Authority, ZRA. WAPA and PELONE, good to have you on Tax Chat.
Thank you. It's always good to be here, Alice.
Yes. To begin with, as we talk about the topic today, a voluntary disclosure program, I'll begin with you, PELONE. To set the foundation of this discussion, could you explain ZRA's approach to voluntary tax compliance and just why voluntary disclosure is important?
Okay. So, Alice, ZRA operates under voluntary compliance. So we encourage our taxpayers to come through and voluntarily comply. So what that means is that the taxpayers are required to register for the correct taxes, to make correct declarations, to make correct returns, and to make correct payments. So for them to be able to do that, they need to know what their obligation is. And that is why we're having this chat today. So this is one of the measures that ZRA embarks on in trying to make sure that the taxpayers are knowledgeable. So we engage in taxpayer education. We teach our taxpayers what they're required to do so that then it will be easy for them to comply. Chifukwankani ya misongo sili easy maningi. So ngatsuziba kuti nyenekero chita so sunga kwanise kuchichita. So timachita encourage kuti ma taxpayers vapunzira vevaenekero chita and it will be easy for them to comply. On the issue of voluntary disclosure, we realize that wonse sometimes timalakwa. Nakunkani ya misonko nako kulikulakwa. You can make genuine errors, you can make wrong declarations, you can omit to declare your taxes. And we are saying, please, if that is your situation, come to ZRA. There is a program now that is going to cater for those omissions. And if you voluntarily come and disclose to us, you are going to be helped. There's going to be some waiver that will happen. So we'll delve deeper into it as we go on.
PELONE, you mentioned about obligations. Maybe just to make the people understand, kuti I am obligation, obligations ya bunch.
Okay, so just like I said, one of the obligations of the taxpayer is to register for the correct taxes. That is one of them. They have to make correct declarations. They have to make the returns to tell ZRA what is happening. And then they also need to make correct payments. So those are among the obligations that taxpayers are obliged to follow.
Okay. Nanga ma honest mistakes ni a bunch.
So ma honest mistakes ndia yet kamba pamanje kuti maybe pochita calculate unachita calculate bwino, so waivalapo something, or maybe you omit an amount bajape wapezekati wachita declare kuzeda so unachita declare va correct, meaning that there was an omission or it was just an error, or kapena things happen differently in your organization and you say, I think tax is inside the chabe. But then, Apatikambakuti, according to Section 91A of the Income Tax Act, there's a provision for disclosure. And now ZRA is putting it into effect by coming up with a voluntary disclosure program where taxpayers are able to come and tell us that this is what happened. Naibala kwa kakandu. Oropo panga ma calculations, excuse me. Popanga ma calculations, I missed this, so I want to disclose. So this is the program we are on.
Okay.
Yes.
Are there in any law?
Yes, as I'm just mentioning, we are coming from the Income Tax Act, Section 91A. That is where we are focusing on.
Oh, okay. This brings us to our topic of focus, WAPA. In simpler terms, what exactly is voluntary disclosure?
Thank you so much, Alice. So when we're looking at voluntary disclosure, what this means is that the taxpayer voluntarily approaches ZRA, they come to us, and they make a disclosure, or they tell us wherever they might have made an error on their taxes. So this could be taxes that were not declared, this could be taxes that were under-declared, or this could also be taxes that were not correctly reported. So this is what voluntary disclosure is all about. So in practice, it can also mean that our taxpayers, when they were filing their returns, maybe they made some errors. Maybe they made some omissions, like my colleague was alluding to earlier. So it's these errors that we're saying we want taxpayers to come to us before we go to them. Because I'm sure, as you are all aware, ZRA does carry out enforcement activities. So what we're saying is this program entails that the taxpayer is approaching us before we put in our measures. And these measures of enforcement are audits, investigations. So the most important thing is they come to us first.
Yeah. What about penalties? Muntu akakambati senza naziba ati apanga maera. What happens?
So muntu ngalanda tilimbita ishire. Efo tulefa pari program nishi na mona kutila alipanga kaumisho. Nimbita ishiba tari ngiro kulipira an amount which is equivalent limbikuli 10 pin mwiyo month limbia pangire 20 pin but achitafe declare 10. So with this voluntary disclosure we're saying umuntu ngaileta pari amona toke hapa nimpango mulandu na aliraba ko kubika kwa kaka amount, then we want those people to come forward, and that is what this program is for. Those that notice that they made an error and they come to us before we go to them.
Okay. Peloni, maybe bantu wanga wondering kuti voluntary disclosure, is it something that is new, and when was it introduced?
Okay.
And how it became a law?
So through the national budget changes for 2025, that process, there was a proposal to encourage voluntary compliance, and in that process, it was proposed that taxpayers should voluntarily comply, and to effect that, the provision is that any omissions that were made and they are disclosed, they can be waived off or removed, so to say, if vanapanga ma mistakes. So to put that into effect, that proposal that was in 2025 has now been ratified into law, meaning that even in the Income Tax Act, the one that we are looking at, or the one that we work under, the one that gives us the powers to do what we do as ZRA, they've corrected and added that provision to say, bantu bazileta bakamba bene bake kutia hapa tunapanga ma mistakes tunaibalapo something. When they do that, they're able to be covered by this law, meaning whatever penalties they incurred can be waived off, as long as, like she mentioned, bazileta bene bake. Then is etaenda chukua tikabakonkela, and then wakambatia hii nizofuna no bwela. Anishisibiza sebeza. Kenekela bachela munjira. Kenekela kumanira munjira. They need to come to us and tell us. Then this will apply to them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Wapa, why is ZRA encouraging my taxpayers kubwela forward bankani ya andachani voluntary disclosure?
So ZRA is encouraging these taxpayers to come forward through this program because we want to be fair to our taxpayers. Limbiba lipangira ma mistakes limbi abenebeka limbi pakuchita calculations kula balimbi bapanga kofia calculations ashiri correct. So we want our taxpayers to come forward. We want them to be treated fairly. Then over the years, ZRA has also improved its systems, its data analysis. Then when it comes to data sharing, we're also sharing information with different institutions. So for example, when it comes to payments to our suppliers, we get that information. So we're able to tell whether the taxes that are submitted are correct or they are not correct. So before we follow them, we want them to come to us. And we want to be fair. That's why the law is even providing for this program. In other words, we want all declarations to be correct. We want all our taxpayers to be compliant before we take any action.
Okay.
Yes.
I think it's loud and clear. What taxpayers or which taxpayers are covered under voluntary disclosure program?
So this program covers everyone, individuals, companies, organizations, basically all taxpayers. Wonsema taxpayers, they are covered. So it doesn't matter what category of a taxpayer you are. As long as at some point you made a mistake, you made an error, you made an omission in your declarations to ZRA, you are covered under this program. And the tax types that are covered among many is the Company Income Tax Act, tax, turnover tax, pay as you earn, withholding tax, minority, rental tax. If we haven't mentioned the tax that you're on here, just know that you're also covered. Yes.
It's all the taxes.
Exactly.
Okay. Why should the taxpayers choose to make a voluntary disclosure, and what are the benefits of this program?
Okay, thank you so much, Alice. So this program has got many benefits, and these benefits are to the taxpayer as well as to ZRA. So there could be situations where the taxpayers, they have filed new returns when in fact maybe they have made some monies. So what we are saying is that the benefits to the taxpayer is that when they make this disclosure, they have got the opportunity for any penalties to be waived. Another benefit is an avoidance of the enforcement action. Remember, we are saying we want you to come to us before we come to you. So they will avoid enforcement actions. They are also going to have correct compliance records. So we want them to have improved compliance records where it will show that this company, when they are filing their returns with all their tax matters, they are compliant, they are doing the right thing. And then another benefit is it also fosters resolution for other tax matters. Because sometimes taxpayers will have issues. They'll come to ZRA. But even as they are making these submissions of issues they have, maybe they also have a problem. So at least when they have correct declarations, it also helps us to resolve any other tax matters that come along the way. And then we're also saying that there's also flexible payments. When you come forward and some errors are noted, and maybe there are indeed some assessments that need to be paid, they can also now maybe apply for time to pay agreements, and then they pay slowly. Pay slow.
Okay.
Then there are also benefits to ZRA. So the benefits to ZRA are that for us we have improved voluntary compliance. Remember, the important thing that we are trying to make very loud and clear is we want our taxpayers to do the right thing and to come forward on their own, and that is compliance. So we'll have improved voluntary compliance, and this will then lead to also increased revenues. So we want to get more revenues, and these revenues will help to the development of our country, Zambia. And lastly, we can also have reduced enforcement activities, because we know as we're doing enforcement, there are costs. There are costs that are there. There are costs that are there when it involves the technology that we need to use. We also have to have more employees that go around to do checks in different areas. So when we have this program running, it means that we have reduced costs on enforcement. So this will also lead to more accurate records. We want to have good records that are showing the right position for all our taxpayers.
Okay.
Thank you.
In case you are just joining us, you are watching Tax Chat, and today we are looking at a voluntary disclosure program, and helping us to look at that is PELONE, CHISANGA, and PHIRI, who are both a senior tax consultant from Zambia Revenue Authority. In case mwina mafunzo ya mine mfuno funsa concerning i topic ya mine tiri nayo lelo, munga lembe ma messages pa Facebook olo pa YouTube page yato Lumen TV Zambia. Olo kapena mwina mafunzo ya mine mfuno kamba na ma ZRA direct munga tume using isa number 4111. I number ili free kulibema charges yali yonse. For now we go on a short break. We'll be right back. Don't change the channel.
Today, you probably helped save a life. Or perhaps helped keep a watchful eye on a neighborhood. Today, you probably helped put food on someone's table. Or help build a road that leads to a destiny. You may have even helped shape the minds of our future. By paying your taxes, you help keep critical medical staff in a job, a school to run, or a neighborhood safe, and a whole lot more. Your taxes help Zambia become better for you and me. Zambia Revenue Authority. My tax, your tax, our destiny.
Welcome back. You are watching a Tax Chat, and today we are looking at a voluntary disclosure program, and helping us look at that is PELONE and WAPA from Zambia Revenue Authority. WAPA, just to take us back, what should taxpayers declare?
Okay. So the tax declarations that we are encouraging our taxpayers to come forth and correctly declare are the ones that maybe they did not declare at all. It could also be tax declarations that were underdeclared. It could also be inaccurately reported declarations. So in actual practice, it could be that when filing a return, they could have omitted some transactions, and this is why we're saying it's important for them to come forward, because it means that as ZRA, we've undercollected. We haven't corrected the correct tax, and it's very important for our taxpayers to always declare the correct taxes. So these are the declarations we are talking about, where one comes forth and discloses if there was an omission, an error, an underdeclaration, and indeed an underpayment.
Okay.
Just to add on,
Yes, please.
We'll take an example of somebody who's on turnover tax. The whole of last year, 2025, they were declaring new returns. Then, having known about this program, the voluntary disclosure program, they say, okay, what I was doing was not right. I was actually making something in my business. So I really want to make amends with ZRA. I want to do the correct thing. So they come to ZRA and say, my people, this is what was happening in my business. I was actually making something, but I didn't think, or I didn't know that even for what I was making, I need to file a correct return or make payment. So this is when I've known. So they come to us with that information. Then we'll guide them on how to file the returns, the missing returns for that period, with the correct information. So we are going to amend the returns that they filed with the wrong information and then correct it. So once that is done, there's going to be penalties that will be applied because they didn't file those returns, or because they filed the returns but they did not declare correctly. So in such a situation, if there are any penalties that arise from that correction, they'll be waived off. Because now they've done the correct thing, and then now the onus is on them to just pay the principal amounts that they should have paid when they did the declaration, except they did the wrong thing then. So that is one example of how this voluntary disclosure can work.
Okay.
Yes.
Langani pa points pa bwanji pa mene disclosure imankal when it stops being considered voluntary.
So it says voluntary because abene bale iperesha.
Abwera beka.
Abwera beka.
Zipereka
So ngati palibe kuzileta otapata kuyiperesha bene. Now it becomes a different situation because it means they will have already probably received an investigation or an audit notice. Somebody would have come to ZRA and say, okay, I have this information, there's this taxpayer, they are evading tax or they are making wrong declarations, and then ZRA will start looking into that taxpayer. Other situations, we know about them because ZRA has internal systems that we are able to monitor the compliance of our taxpayers. You know, nchitoya tunikuchita collect. So we find ways of finding out who is running away from doing the correct thing. So if there is that detection from our internal systems, then nish voluntary disclosure siza sevenza. Kaidi manja nish mnazilete. Nish tamuiletere mwebeni. Tuwa mikonka. Nangu nish tule mibebeta, tule michecking, tule fokumona. Nga chachi ne mleshta fintu fiaba correct. So at that point, it means now you are intentionally taking away revenue that is needed for the country. Elo nombana ifotwa ishwe kwebati efe mlechite fitafili correct. It means voluntary disclosure teti won't be up because tamwishile voluntarily nemkwai.
Tifuno ziba under voluntary disclosure my charges yonse yamankala removed.
Okay, so ama charges aya fumiwako ku voluntary disclosure ni penalty fee. Penalty fee tulera ndeto twarachita wave, but kwali ba interest ilia interest yena it still remains payable. So according to Section 91A of the Income Tax Act, the penalty is waived for a taxpayer that makes a valid voluntary disclosure. But idia interest yena, it's still payable. So for tulelanda fyakutila, kula bakari akanda maka kulipira pamulu mulanduli mbiwali rufyanya, tawachitia declare wino. So kariaka pamulu, kariaka interest, kariaka kena kachiri payable. But penalty yeno tulelanda ati mulandu tawalipire wino, yeno twarachita wave. That's why today we are saying let all the taxpayers come forward because there's this provision in the law that is allowing for the penalty to be waived.
Okay.
Yes.
Awe hembeka. Nga ma condition niya bwanji ma taxpayers ya shita qualify could the penalty waiver and the voluntary disclosure program. PELONE. Okay,
so the conditions that a taxpayer must meet to benefit from this penalty waiver under the voluntary disclosure program. 1, they must disclose voluntarily. That is 1. And then in the all relevant facts must be availed to ZRA. That means the figures, the tax periods must be fully and honestly disclosed. Because violator futafule basa mkubepo bufinangu bambo kupela na yambi ama omissions na ngoma mistakes yambi just to make it easy for them to pay tax. Bafule feba sabalande chinka memkwai. So that is another condition. Another one is that they should not have any audit or investigation or enforcement action that has already started by ZRA. ZRA has internal systems. We have enforcement teams. So we go out, we are able to detect any fraudulent activities that are happening with our taxpayers or on our taxpayers' accounts. So there shouldn't be any of that. We shouldn't have started something. They should come voluntarily without us having detected the problem, because then the voluntary now ceases to apply. And then the taxpayer must pay the principal, tax due, or enter into a time to pay agreement. So about ndololo kwebati nga kuliama issues bakweta ayankongole ama penalties nga twayachita waive off principal amount iliyo bali no kulipile ya chini yene bafuire balipira nangula nga bafiro kulipira pamkumu ka slow pay kaya bachanda pay slow So what we call it here at ZRA is that we call it a time to pay agreement. You get into this agreement so that you are able to clear your dues gradually. Panono. Then finally they need to provide supporting documents. Because that is a fact mistake, backup. We need to know where the mistake was. We need to know that this was an omission and now what you are doing is correcting that omission. So Kubama supporting documents. Okay. Yes.
Wapa, let's guide our viewers step by step. Bali, how does the tax payer apply for the voluntary disclosure?
All right. So the steps are very straightforward. So the first thing that our taxpayers need to do is they need to review their records. They need to check their records. They need to identify where are the errors, where are the omissions. Then the next thing that they are going to do is they need to prepare a written disclosure. Now this will explain whatever findings that they found under their reviews. So there they will write, in this letter they will mention the error, they will mention the tax type, as well as the period. And after they've done this, they should also attach all the supporting documents. Like my colleague was mentioning just earlier, she mentioned so it's very important for us to have the supporting documents because these at least help to build the case and also to give us insight as ZRA. We are also saying that there should be full disclosure, not and this program is very important. So they need to just give us all the information. The other thing they need to do is they need to pay principal because the law is allowing for us to waive off that penalty, but the principal amount, it still needs to be paid. So ZRA will then issue out an outcome letter, and this will show the tax that is payable. This will also show the interest that is due, the penalty that we've granted, and if this is applicable, that penalty will then be waived. So the most important thing is we're saying let our taxpayers come forward, let them be open.
Okay. As we conclude, your words to the viewers out there, PELONE.
Our dear esteemed taxpayers, we want to encourage you to come through to ZRA. Come and tell us those errors. Tell us about the omissions, the under-declarations. There's this program. It is meant for you, and please utilize it. So as we have said, beginning January 2026, we are calling upon all our taxpayers that have found themselves in a situation where they made a mistake here and there. Please come through with your documents. Come so that we correct your tax situation, and you will have your penalties waived off. Additionally, we are saying, as you carry out your business, please do not forget to register for Smart Invoice. If you are already registered for Smart Invoice, we are saying, may you please continue using it. Do not wait for somebody to come and ask for it, then on the side, that is where you issue a Smart Invoice. May this be part of your business. And for those that haven't registered for Smart Invoice, we have enforcement teams that are going around. Smart Invoice is law. Do not find yourself on the other side of the law. We appreciate you, and that is why we are coming up with all these initiatives to try and make your voluntary compliance bearable. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, PELONE and WAPA. It's been a pleasure having you on Tax Chat.
Thank you.
We've come to the end of the program. I believe you've learned one or two things on the topic of focus that we had today, voluntary disclosure program. Don't forget to tune in again next time, same place. From us, it's bye-bye. Remember, it's my tax, your tax, our destiny.